Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming to this webinar. We are super excited to see so many of you in today. It's great to see that the numbers are growing. We're getting lots of different countries. And so if it's your first time joining us, this is a monthly webinar series by Conservation Optimism. We have a network of organizations that have pledged to be optimistic with the way they frame their messaging. And so what we do is we give them the spotlight. So every month we have a different member talking about different topics. And so if your organization is not yet part of the network, we will put the link in the chat so that you can see the form to join. It's free, and then you get access to our webinar series, our workshop series, and our new mentoring program as well. So there's a lot of exciting things going on within Conservation Optimism. But enough about this. Today, we are super excited to have Jennifer Palmer with us, and Jen is the founder of Women for Wildlife and Jen Palmer Global, and she's an advisor to Conservation Wild as well. And so, Jen, you aim to create a positive paradigm shift in how we connect nature and coexist in harmony. And today, you are going to tell us how to be a resilient ninja. So I'm really intrigued and very curious to hear more about this. So I'll pass it on to you now, and I'll be back once you're done with your presentation to do the Q&A session. So if you're in the audience, feel free to post your questions in the chat while we go through the presentation. And then at the end, we'll give you the mic and you can ask your questions directly. So here you go.
Great. So happy to see all of you guys. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Great. It's really nice to see a few familiar friends and family. Thank you all for showing up. So I'm going to start by saying, you know, when you think of the word adversity, often you hear about it as someone who, you know, conquered something big and they've made it to the top. You know, they've kind of overcome obstacles and struggles. And normally when you hear the stories from them, they're on the other side of the hill, right? Like they've made it, they're psyched. Mine's a little different because I am still in it. So I'm really excited to be able to have the chance to share this story with you, because I think sometimes we often will hear the happy, you know, conclusion of a story and not sort of the stuff we go through in between. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, I wanted to share this topic with all of you today, because I was saying earlier before all of you signed on that, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like life just got really, really real the last couple of years, whether you're in conservation or just you're a human. And so I'm having more and more conversations about this, just to be able to open up this space for all of us to just own the experiences that we're having, and to find the humanness and the connection with all of it. Because I think the sooner that we start doing that, the faster we're going to be able to move through and hopefully get on the other side of those hurdles. So just like any good story, once upon a time, I grew up in South Florida, and I absolutely loved all animals. I was just wild about being outside, being on the beach, and I really fell in love with nature and with wildlife at a young age. And animals became sort of my window into a world that I was truly fascinated by, and had a sense of belonging. I would have full conversations with my thousands of stuffed animals, and it was just a world that I knew I was really drawn to, and I was called to explore more. And so throughout my time on a foundational level growing up, you know, I was swimming with manatees, and I had all things dolphin you could imagine. And I just really was fascinated with what they did, how they communicated, what they ate, who they were, sort of looking into the eyes of another creature. And it was really the life path that opened up for me in terms of who I would become as a person and what I wanted to do in the world. And when I started out on this, you know, I really thought that going after my dreams was really going to be awesome. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I really did think that I was just going to just roll right into things, and that this is what going after your dreams would feel like. But as many of you know, in conservation, especially, this is more often what going after your dreams looks like. You have a lot of breakdowns, you struggle, you have a lot of heartache. There are these things that we don't talk about in conservation, like it's really hard to make a financial living. It's challenging to be facing issues that break your heart every day. There are obstacles with navigating your career and your family and travel and your heart, and I just wish that someone would have told me that and give me a heads up so that I knew what I was getting myself into with conservation. Around the transition from like high school to college, that's when I started realizing that this was not going to be an easy journey for me. That this whole idea of I want to learn about animals and I want to see the world and I want to make a difference was going to be a bit harder, and it was going to be very unconventional. I got rejected from my university that I really wanted to go to initially, was University of Florida. And, at that time, Florida was the only thing I knew. And I was devastated. I got rejected twice. I got rejected from all kinds of universities. And so I had to pivot and make another plan. I ended up staying at home in my hometown. I went to community college. I got a bunch of jobs. I was like, well, meanwhile, my friends were at Ivy League schools, and I was going like, wow, this is gonna be hard work. I'm gonna have to keep trying. And so I learned that, the unconventional path, which I think anyone in conservation is on a very unconventional path, was gonna take a bit more grit than I knew. And so that's when I figured out I was gonna have to figure out how to be a ninja. I was going to have to find a new way, find a new strategy, become more resilient, adapt with changes, face my struggles, and dig really, really deep for courage in a way that I didn't know I needed. And I didn't know why I needed it. And I certainly didn't know where I was going to get it. But I think to be in this field, that's what we need. We need to be agile and strong and witty and be able to adapt. And so even though I didn't get into my dream university because of that, I ended up all the way over on the other side of the country, and I got accepted to UC Santa Cruz eventually. And this was what shifted the trajectory of my entire career path. Which you'll notice is a theme in adversity, where when we're faced with it, we just feel crushed, and then it ends up opening doors to something else that's we couldn't have imagined. My life at UC Santa Cruz was where I learned I could even be a wildlife biologist. I could go and study animals. I could learn about animal behavior. I could work directly with animals. And so this really opened up a whole new world for me. And so it launched me into this crazy, crazy path of going to different countries and working with local communities and really trying to understand, how do we protect the things that we love the most? How do we work in conservation and be able to help preserve these creatures that meant so much to me? I ended up working in conservation in a lot of different capacities. Each one of them, I fell flat on my face all the way through. It was one of those, oh my gosh, I love this. And then, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And it's been this journey of up and down, and I think of that first graphic of that person on top of the mountain and like, I have arrived. I think for me, if you can mute, I can hear a bunch of background sound. So if you're still unmuted, that'd be great. I think for me, I would kind of scramble up the mountain, and then I'd slide down with the pebbles. And then I'd scramble up the mountain and I'd slide down the pebbles. So the point of my heart and my goal was always the wildlife and the nature. So being able to come back to that center and go, why am I doing this? why am I doing this? And I'm sure everyone on this call has asked themselves that question. And honestly, I've seen a lot of crazy things that most people wouldn't believe. When you have an unconventional path and you're faced with all these challenges and you put yourself out there and you take risks, you end up facing things that you didn't know you were going to have to face. And that certainly wasn't taught in school, of how to become a conservationist. And it was really heartbreaking. And honestly, I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, all of these things are happening, whether it was climate change, whether it was poaching, whether it was poverty, whether it was, just really heart-aching things to see. And so I really thought, okay, well, I love wildlife biology and I love studying these animals, but somebody needs to be a superhero, right? So I thought I would shift from being a ninja to a superhero, and that I would come in and go, all right, I'm going to go into conservation. I'm going to, I love animals, but what I really want to do is figure out how to save them. So the first thing I started doing was studying whales. And again, this is one of those peaks and then drops. Studying whales, they're magical, they're amazing. I spent years of my life on different research vessels. And I don't know if any of you have studied whales, but it takes quite a lot of patience, and it can also be incredibly heartbreaking to learn the stories about, sperm whales going through toxicology full of toxins, beluga whales being washed up and taken care of like they were a toxic waste dump. I was shocked. I really was really taken aback by, this quest that I felt I was on to work with endangered species, and starting to hear the stories again and again, year after year. It was really hard. So I left the whale world and I went into the pinniped world, seals and sea lions. I thought I would, shift over, doing a little bit more work on land and on islands. And I worked with Hawaiian monk seals for a couple of years, one of the most endangered species that are on our planet. And again, fascinated, amazing, loving living in the wilderness, loving everything about these critters. And yet they're emaciated, they're entangled. I'm doing necropsies all the time. And I just felt like now I'm just documenting the extinction of this animal. And it really hit my heart that, these animals live for, about 1,200 miles northwest of the main islands. They literally are on the most remote place in the world, a coral atoll. And yet they're being impacted by us. And it really just kept breaking my heart. Again, it's that facing the adversity of what was going on in nature and in this wild world that I really wanted to help preserve. Working with albatross, again, talk about a species that are traveling thousands and thousands of miles, facing, being eaten by tiger sharks and soaring across the oceans. And then they would come back to these atolls and they would be regurgitating plastic into their chicks. I would see plastic pollution every day coming out of the bodies of these majestic creatures. And I would just sit there going like, what? These issues are so big, and how have we as humans had such an impact on these animals that live so far away? And then I switched to sea turtles and I thought, well, maybe it'll be better in the sea turtle world. And again, plastic pollution, entanglements, poaching. It just sort of felt like this was like one long string of magic of being able to work with animals and wildlife, heart to heart with devastation. So as much as I loved living in the wilderness, I decided to go to Washington, D.C. I thought maybe this was where I could make a difference. I worked for the IUCN for several years, and I was advising the White House. I worked with 2 different administrations to get areas protected, to get species protected. And let me just tell you, living in Washington, D.C., is probably where I learned most of my skills for overcoming adversity. Um, it's it's interesting to go from living in wilderness to sitting in the White House and trying to explain why these places matter and why these animals matter to people that certainly don't have the connection to nature that all of us do. And it was very much an old boys club. So walking into conference tables that are full of mostly older white men who just wanted me to get their coffee definitely taught me how to stand up for myself, how to speak my voice, how to dig deep even when I felt small. And it taught me that there's a lot of different ways to do conservation. And one of those ways is to be in the film industry and to start working on much bigger scale. So I felt like my world started very small in terms of wildlife biology and studying animals. Then it was conservation. Then it was climate change in global perspectives. So working with sharing your story, working with being creative about arts and conservation, and what does that look like? Could you use art to change the perspective of a congressman who might then start voting on behalf of climate change, which is what this amazing film allowed us to do. And so I really started seeing that there were different ways to make a difference and that there were different ways to navigate adversity. But in my heart, going through all of these journeys, I found what was inspiring me the most personally were the women that I was meeting in all of these countries in all of these different heart-aching issues going on in conservation. The women brought me so much strength. And so I decided to launch an initiative called Women for Wildlife. And this organization has been around for about 6 or 7 years now. And really it was about building community with other women who were facing adversity and being able to come together and be real with each other about our challenges, about our obstacles, about the things that we were trying to change in our societies and in our culture. And Women for Wildlife has been a collection of things throughout the years. We've done a lot of girls in science programs, inspiring younger generations of girls and women. We have done expeditions and tried to really visit the projects on the ground and provide support and inspiration. And mostly we've built a community. It's a community of extraordinary women on the front lines of conservation who are facing some of the most difficult challenges one could ever imagine. And through that journey, I also started meeting women who were changing. They were changing the world. They were changing the culture. They were facing things that were unheard of. This is a photo of the Black Mambas in South Africa. This is an all-women anti-poaching unit. And they really were and are trailblazers. They decided that, for a very male-dominated industry, women could be part of this. Women could make a difference. Women could be on the ground. They could be boots on the ground. They could be inspiring their community. They could be changing how women are viewed in conservation and beyond. And that really captured me, that idea that there are women all over the world, many of them are on this call right now, that are doing exactly that. They're showing up in a way that is making people think and rethink about the power of leadership in women. And so my heart really fell in love with South Africa in general. And so from that point forward, this journey that I was on started becoming more focused on, well, how can we engage more people into this sort of matriarchal leadership and experiencing wilderness and wildlife in a whole new way? And yet the issues were just as heartbreaking. You've got pretty much every species all across Africa is struggling. These are the last of the animals. This is it. And tourism is such a huge part of keeping these animals around. And empowering the communities that are working to protect them. So I began to learn a lot more about the travel industry and how can travel and tourism come together, and being able to do this in a way that offers the conservation programs on the ground with support and offers the people that are coming on these journeys the chance to understand nature and to learn from nature and to learn the adversity and the resilience that nature actually brings, the lessons that we have from learning how to be in wilderness again. We've forgotten that connection to nature. So I moved to South Africa with this big dream of I'm going to launch a new business, and I was so excited about it. And then COVID hit. As you can imagine, the travel industry came to a halt. All of my expeditions canceled. My film projects canceled, my speaking engagements canceled. Everything that I had been working up to and really following came to a halt in a way that was really abrupt. And I was on lockdown for a year and a half. I went there thinking I was going to go there for a couple of months, launch my travel company, work with conservation projects, finally get back on my feet financially, and COVID. And I basically had a year and a half of sitting in the African bush to think and to ponder. And it was magical and majestic, and it was hard and heartbreaking. And I had just lost all of my money. I had lost my business that I had worked so hard for. I'd lost a relationship. I was going through heartache. And I got really rattled. It was not an easy time. It was one of those bridges of it was a difficult time, but it was a wonderful time. And in hindsight, watching how this path has been taking me has been fascinating. So about a year ago, I was finally able to leave South Africa, although I didn't want to. I was in love with it and am in love with it. I had to come back to the States. I had to get back on my feet financially. I had to figure out what I was going to do. And this picture really does capture how I felt. I felt like I failed. I felt like all these huge ambitions and dreams that I was following, I failed. They didn't happen. And I literally was like coming home with my tail between my legs, just feeling awful about myself and about my position in this world as a leader, and certainly didn't know what to do for conservation anymore. I was at a bit of a loss. And then the double whammy hit. I got sick. So I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and I have now spent the last year in and out of doctors. I have gone through crazy medical tests and blood work. It took ages to find out what was going on. My whole body shut down. And that was an adversity that I did not expect. And it was one that made me stop. I had to stop. I had to stop everything and rest and regroup and reevaluate and renew and rebuild. In yoga practices, we often talk about the lotus flower. This is a flower that starts from the mud. It grows out from the mud and it comes up through the murky waters, and it breaks the surface of the water and it opens and it blossoms untouched by the mud, by this really intense path that it took. And it's this symbol of renewal, symbol of that the mud that you've gone through is going to help birth you into your new beginning, into your new blossom, into your transitioning, into your leveling up. I'm not quite there. I think I am sprouting. I'm sprouting out of the mud. I can kind of see the light at the surface of the water. I can see that others have gone on that journey, and they have managed to get to the surface and to bloom. And it's okay. It's okay to still be in it, to still be in the process of trying to heal my body and open up to a new chapter. And so this wisdom I want to share with you is a lot of my personal take-home life hacks for how to get through really difficult times, whether that's in conservation or just in life in general. This is sort of a year later of being able to literally just lay down and not be able to do much and not travel and not be in the bush and not be with animals and not be going after some big conservation cause, but just sit and reflect and go a little deeper into this journey. And so this is sort of what I've come up with, what my own personal take is on how to become more resilient through these obstacles. One is to really connect with yourself and connect to nature. Find a way to quiet the noise. We are inundated with so much information, especially in our field where every day we're being faced with terrible news on our social media feeds. We open up, a news channel. We're always being told about the horrible things that are going on, and it wears on you, and it leads to burnout. It leads to compassion fatigue, and we're not good to the causes that we're trying to support when we are completely drained. And it took, for me, it took literally being knocked out in order for me to learn that lesson. You do have to quiet the noise, and it's really, really important. Secondly, tell yourself the truth, the whole truth. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we have an internal dialogue that's going on about where are we at and what have we not done and what should we be doing more of. And I think it is really valuable to balance that out with all of the really fantastic things about yourself and your journey and what you've accomplished and who you are and how you show up in the world. I had a life coach say you deserve to tell yourself the whole truth. And that mantra has stayed in my mind every day. I think about that. There are some things that you have control of and most things that you don't. So just owning that and telling yourself the truth about where you are at. Let yourself adapt, pivot, change. I like to call it plot twist, just to try to lighten it up when things go down. It's really important, kind of that mantra, resistance is futile. You're gonna get walloped. It's, we're in a field that by its nature, we are faced with big, hard things. But it's okay if you're willing to be a bit more agile and adapt and see what's in front of you and work with what is actually happening rather than resisting the thing that you really want to happen. Making the best use of what is actually happening, and take a minute and pay attention to that. Time. Value and cherish your time. There's a quote that time is life, life is time. Time is something that we always think we have more of, and we don't. Just yesterday, I found out a good friend of mine passed away unexpectedly to me. I didn't know he had cancer, and we don't know how much time we have. We think we have it indefinitely. So the time that you do have, cherish it and don't squander it away. Experience life, let yourself love. Laugh. We've got to laugh more. We have to dance more and be creative and artistic and be silly and unplug and detox and play. This is a part of life that I adamantly feel is going to help build resiliency like none other. Joy, really calling in joy and setting down the heavy stuff and bringing in more fun in your life. Good friend of mine named Jody Cole, an inspiration. She gave me a bit of wisdom that said, stay in your own hula hoop. So all of us as humans, we look at everybody else, what they're doing, how they're, what they've accomplished, where are they at? Are they married? They've got a house, they've got a car, they've got the New York Times bestseller, they've got the expedition they just launched, they've got that really grant, that new promotion. And it just eats you away. And social media doesn't help. So I'm often reminded of that. Just very, very simple. Stay in your own hula hoop. You have your own journey, your own strength, your own path. You have your own calling, the thing that you are supposed to follow, your own North Star. So try really hard not to spend too much time looking at what other people are doing. Stay in your own hula hoop. And then take the risk, those 5 seconds of courage when you're not really sure and you're kind of feeling shy or small. Just do it. Take the risk, because you have the choice of choosing love over fear all the time. And I promise you, your life is going to be much richer if you choose love. Give your heart a high five every day. Mel Robbins has a great book on this. Literally set yourself up, put your hands on your heart and give it a high five. You need it. Like, give yourselves the love that you need. It's really, really important that you are at peace with your own self. Don't go it alone. Lean on your friends and your family. Ask for support. No matter where you are in the world, there are wonderful, loving, caring, beautiful people. Connection is key to being strong through all of this. Being able to show up fully as yourself, being able to connect and show up for others will fill your heart and give you the strength that you need to face the hard times that are ahead of you. And lastly, your mind, your body, and your soul. These are a bit more practical skills. So I'll start with the body. A few things that I think are game changers. Sleep. Try to get, I know you're gonna laugh, but 9 hours of sleep. Research actually says 10 is the ultimate. So be really cognizant of your sleep. Make it a ritual. Put your phone in the other room, put a nice eye mask on, have some lavender oil, whatever you need to do to settle in and have a really nice night's sleep. Get yourself a really good pillow. Just sleep is really, really important to regenerate and re-nourish your body. Food, obviously, the fuel that we put into our body. Put good stuff in your body. If you can, try to buy organic, try to clear out the plastic and the toxins as much as you can on a practical level. What you give your body is going to give you the energy you need to face all of this. Water, drink a lot of it, drink more than you think. You're gonna feel a lot better when you do. And movement, whether that's dance, exercise, walking, some kind of movement in your body is going to make a huge difference for how your vessel is able to show up. Take really good care of it. Trust me, don't get to the point where you've got something else attacking it and you've got to work through getting back in balance. It's not fun. So do those things for your body. For your mind, just like we talked about, quiet the noise. If you don't know about meditation yet, give it a shot. It really does help simmer out and defog the fuzz so that you can have clarity and focus and really touch into your intuition. Be mindful of your thoughts. Again, paying attention to what's going on in your mind that's critical versus what's going on in your mind that is full of energy and love and light. And positivity. Be the gatekeeper of those thoughts. If you start finding yourself on a negative cycle, like shut it down. Just no, you have no place here. Breath and breathing. Breath work is great. Really simple. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 4. Inhale, exhale. It's probably the best tool you will have to calm your central nervous system and be able to stay strong. Go in nature. Nature is always going to re-ground you. I promise you. Food for the soul, find your tribe. Find the people that lift you up and nourish you. Surround yourself with them, connect with them, go on adventures, even if they're little micro adventures. Set down the ego and the pain and the judgment. And I know it's so easy to say that and be like, yeah, just set it down. But try to do it all day long. Just anything that's heavy, that's getting in your way, that's your own personal barrier, literally just imagine it's in a ball or a big stone because it's heavy, and you set it down next to you and you keep going, because that thing is not going to help you go where you need to go. So just keep telling yourself, I'm going to set it down, and then do something for someone else. When you're able to show up for someone else, it is amazing how the ripple effect of that energy and that love is contagious. So lastly, your confidence, knowing who you are, is going to really help you embrace your journey ahead of you. Having compassion for yourself, you're in conservation, you're trying to do good work for the world. Show yourself some love and then share it with others. That inner fire, having the strength of why am I here and what am I doing? Get back to that. There's a reason that you chose conservation. There's a reason that your heart is being called to show up to the world in this way. Keep reconnecting to it, whatever that is for you. Kindness, sprinkle it everywhere. When you're going to get a coffee, say hi to the barista, find out what her name is. Make the day brighter of the people that are around you, because it will ultimately come back through and through. And then tenacity. You gotta try again, and you gotta try again, and you gotta try again. And you know that little by little, step by step, it happens. Finding grace in adversity is not easy. Having that resiliency and tenacity is not easy. But when you start to own your beauty and your mess, and we all have both, you're going to be able to open up and walk through this world the way that you are meant to. I promise you, life is not going to look like you thought it was going to, as all of you probably already experienced many, many, many times over. Some days are going to shatter you. They're going to bring you down to your knees, and it's going to be really devastating. Whether or not that's the animal that you're working with, the numbers keep dropping, or the forest that you're trying to protect just caught on fire, or the island that you used to do research on is underwater. It's happened to me. It's hard. It's really tough, but there is grace to be found. And at the edge of those breakdowns, when you're really feeling awful, that's when the breakthroughs come. So just stay with it, because there's going to be those days that will bring you in awe, absolute awe. And you're going to cherish those, because those are the moments that are going to get you through the times that aren't. Lastly, one of my favorite quotes by Mary Oliver: what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? We only have one shot. How do you want to show up? How do you want to be there for the people in your life? How do you want to make a difference in the world for the animals and the places you love? Because that's really what it's about. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to hear my story. I can't wait for the Q&A session. Please find me on jenpalmer.com or Women for Wildlife. We'd love to connect with you. If anyone wants to join me, I do have a women's retreat coming up. Feel free to ping me. We will be in nature. It's all about nature and wellness. And I just really wish you all the best on this journey. And I hope you stay with it, because we need every single person out there just like you. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Jen, for sharing your story and sharing all your life hacks. And I think, with the pandemic that we are still living through, I think it's been an incredibly tough time for many people. And as you said, conservation already had its challenges, but it's added so much pressure. So I'm sure there's a lot that people could learn from your talk. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
I see that we had a few questions in the chat, so I'm just going to scroll through. I think Nishant was asking, did you have any literature or books that helped you when you were in the self-reflective phase? And could you share them with the audience?
Yes, yes, yes. There's a lot of different authors that I have really, really leaned on. One is Brene Brown. Anything by Brene Brown. She's got a brand new book that just came out. She's got videos online. Jay Shetty is another person who is absolutely brilliant. He was a monk at one point in his life, and now he is incredible at sharing really great messages through social media. So if you don't follow him yet on Instagram, highly recommend Jay Shetty. There's an incredible book called Burnout, Burnout, Burnout. It's mostly written for women, but I do think that it could benefit pretty much anybody out there. Mel Robbins, follow her on social media. Again, lots of videos. Another great book of hers just came out. So yeah, there are a lot of resources out there and a lot of good people to follow. And if you want more, like who else are you following? Just send me a note, because really mostly my social media feed are people that can offer me wisdom and encouragement and funny animal videos. And that's about it. Because it's about all I can handle right now. Lift me up and make me laugh. That's where I'm at. So yes, please surround yourself with some support.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Is the Burnout, 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 the book by Emily, the Nagasaki sisters?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll put it
in
the
they're
chat.
Sisters. Yeah. And actually, Brene Brown interviewed them on her podcast. So if you want to get the best of both worlds in, a 1 hour clip, just to see if you want to read the book, you can look that up as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Brene Brown podcast as well. I mean, she's got multiple ones now, but they're all great.
Great stuff.
I can see in the chat that we had a question as well from Sakib, who was saying they're a recent graduate in conservation and land management. And so they were asking, what are the kind of early opportunities there are for fresh graduates? So I guess a question for you might be, what's your tips for fresh graduates, people who are just graduating now in this particular context we're in?
Yeah, it's a tricky time in your career because you need to get experience, but most people aren't able to pay you for it. So for me, I actually did like paid internships where I paid to do the internship. I looked at it as sort of the next chapter of my career. But what it did offer me, although it costs me an investment, it gave me the experience to have on my resume. And I think the applied experience is really, really valuable. So I would say, look at different organizations that might be accepting interns. If you want to live in the field and in the bush, there are a lot of places that really, really need help. If you're willing to not earn much money. And so because of that, I also recommend all the students that I work with to try to find something on the side that does generate a little bit of income. So I started learning a lot more about how to be a strong writer. So I do a lot of consulting on the side that's helping people with social media content and writing blogs and being a consultant for nonprofits that just need smaller support. So I would say, try to find a skill that you can do on the side just to get some income while you're building up that experience. But there are a lot of nonprofits that need support and could offer you the opportunity to be able to get that hands-on in situ experience. And you might find you love it, you might find you hate it. I've had experiences with students that thought they were going to love it, and they're like, I can't shower, I'm dirty, I don't like this. So it's good to get the experience. So give it a good shot.
Wonderful. I could see some clapping and thumbs up. So I think people have enjoyed that answer. I can also see a question now from Anna. So Anna was asking, any thoughts on how to overcome the feeling of needing to work all the time for the cause, even though we know that it will lead to burnout, which I guess links to the resources you posted earlier. So what are your tips?
Anna, I really feel for you. That has been my whole life journey. And it really didn't take anything less than me getting Lyme disease and not being able to physically move my body to slow down. And so my biggest piece of advice is to remind yourself that you are not going to be of service to the causes that you love and the people that you love unless you are able to be strong. And the only way to do that is to find a sustainable path forward, because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We need to pace ourselves and really carve out that time. It's part of the investment in your project. There's never going to be a day where you think, I'm good. I checked off everything on my list. Okay, yep, I finished that project. We saved the world. Onward and upward. Like, that day's never going to come. This is life's work, and life's work is going to take strategy and sustainability. And trust me, it's going to put you there one way or another. So I always tell people to just listen to what's going on in their body and pay attention, because it's gonna maybe start with a little poke, like maybe like, oh, I'm tired, oh, my neck's kind of stiff, or I'm not sleeping really well. And then you're like, it's okay, I'll just keep going. I can work through lunch. I can, I'll just work an extra 10 hours this week and catch up, whatever. And then the volume is going to turn up. That message is going to come through, and it's not going to be, oh, I just have a little headache. It's going to be, I can't move because you didn't listen to me before. So I'm going to make sure you're going to listen to me now. So the overwhelm and overcome it's part of the process. And you just have to quiet the noise and let yourself deserve to be taken care of, so that you can take care of the things that are calling you.
Yeah, a lot of that resonate. I think we've definitely seen a lot of that happening in recent time. I had a question for you, actually. So I know that you mentioned, the importance of connection as like a pillar. And at the moment, we're all living in different state of like, regulations, or like it's not looking the same for everyone everywhere in the world. But I think it's fair to say that connecting has been difficult. In-person connections has been very limited in the past few years. So what are your tips to maintain this kind of connections when you're in this time where it might be difficult to do things in person? How do you manage to like foster these connections?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, because I have personally really struggled this last year. I see comments about how mental health is so important, and I couldn't agree more. And, many of us on this call come from the science world of some kind. And so the thing that started to really make sense for me was to remember that we are primates, and our survival is linked to our connections. And so by being removed from people for so long, and being removed from a tribal vibe of feeling safe because there's people around me, and feeling safe because I know that you've got my back, and this experience for everybody has been very rattling because it goes against our biology. So I would say step one is to give yourself a lot of compassion, that this is hard, and it's been hard, and we're only just now dipping our toe in the water of like, I don't know, should I socialize? Should I go to that braai? Should I, I don't know, should I go out to that? It's a gathering. It's, so we're in a weird place. And so the connection piece and the human tactile piece, right? Being hugged, being held, all of that is biology. So sometimes when I feel like hard on myself, like, why is this so hard? I lived in the wilderness alone. I should be fine without people. Like, I laugh at myself because I'm like, you're a primate. You're a human having a human experience. And so I would suggest that, try if you can to find, a couple of people that you can actually see from time to time, like in person. Go for a walk, sit and have tea, human to human connection in a safe outdoor space is really, really important as we start to re-enter this. And then, obviously we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp, we have FaceTime, we have Instagram, we have 8,000 ways of connecting with our loved ones. And we just have to take the time. We have to be intentional, and we have to ask when you're struggling and it, you're like, I'm hurting, I'm lonely, I'm really having a hard time. Guess what? Reach out to somebody. Sit and have a coffee date on WhatsApp and be like, okay, well, we can't have coffee because you're in South Africa and I'm here, but we can at least do this, and we can laugh and we can joke, and we can remember that connection is the supporting life force as a human, as part of the human experience. Also, I spend a lot of time with dogs. I do. I play with dogs all the time, taking care of 2 dogs right now. Like, dogs and animals, horses, cats, any animal that you can spend time with, I promise you, it's going to help that feeling of connection, because we're connected to nature. So those are my recommendations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think the aspect of reaching out when you're feeling down is something that sometimes can be difficult, but it's so important. So yeah, I really, again, that really resonates with me. I am going to give people one last chance to ask a question. So I'm going to give everyone a few seconds if there's any more questions. While I wait to see, I can see a few thank yous coming through. I will also say Tamara has posted our post-webinar feedback survey. So please fill it, because it helps us inform future webinars, which is really helpful to know what you enjoy, what you want to see more of, which topics you'd like to hear. I don't see any questions coming through, so I think this might be the end of the Q&A, but thank you so much again for answering our questions and for doing this talk today.
Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to, just open up my heart a bit to all of you, and be vulnerable and share that times have been really challenging. And, all we can do is keep showing up and keep trying, and own that beauty part and own that mess part, and just move forward, and try and try again, as they say. But I just am so honored that people from all over the world showed up to hear a bit of my story. And please reach out to me anytime you need support or guidance. I'm doing a lot more wellness coaching to help people through hard times. So if what I said resonated with you, you want to learn more, please reach out to me. I would be honored to help support the process. And like I said, we need all of you. We need all of you showing up with your full being in this world, because all of you are making such a difference, and I'm honored to be part of this community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And just to end up, to wrap up today, I just wanted to make an announcement about our next webinar. And so I'm just looking at, so I don't mess up the title. So our next webinar will happen on the 10th of May at 5 p.m. BST. And it will be about Lowland Tapir Conservation Initiative, 25 years of tapir conservation efforts in Brazil. And the speakers will be Felipe Morelli Fantasini and Gabriela Medeiros. And Felipe is actually with us today, so nice to see him already. And so, if you want to hear from him next time, make sure to register for the webinar through the link that we shared earlier. So yes, I guess that's it for today. Thank you, everyone. And thank you again so much, Jen, for the talk, and wishing you, I guess for you, it's still early days. So wishing you a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And you too. Enjoy your day today. And I just hope all of you guys have a beautiful journey moving forward. You got this. Stay strong.
And thank you to everyone who came to watch the webinar today.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye, everyone.